There are several video clips I'm going to show you now telling you about different aspects of what you'll see in these student learning units that make up the collaborative curriculum. And we're going to start with a story, two stories, right here in Santa Rosa, because I thought that would be a great place for us to begin. All right, so we've already talked about curiosity, and I told you everything I do, let me go back just one, everything I do with a research base behind me, because I love to do literature reviews. Some people have other hobbies. I like to do literature reviews. And you benefit from that because I don't say anything lightly. So as I was looking at this video clip that you just saw, The Adaptable Mind, I thought, gosh, this is really nice and interesting, and nice job, team who put it together. But let's just find out a little bit more about some of these qualities, this creativity, this curiosity, this initiative. So we did a little bit more reading, and this was really fascinating. I found a study that had been done by 3 European scholars, British scholars, where they brought together 200 research projects in a meta-analysis. And what they found was this. You have two learners. One has a very high IQ, whatever that means, and the other one's curiosity and initiative have been joined together. And at the end of the day, the child whose curiosity and initiative has been stimulated will perform every bit as well as the child with that high capacity, that high IQ. And that's looking over 200 studies in a meta-analysis. That was interesting to me. You and I can control, I can't change a child's intelligence quotient. I can't change that. But I can stimulate the curiosity. I can allow students to move forward with their creativity in something that they will apply their initiative to. That we can stimulate in the classroom. So I thought that was really interesting. And I also love this. You can't manage the creativity of your students. That's kind of comes with the package, but what you can do is manage your classroom so that the creativity of your students can flourish. That we do have control over. So if you do believe, and this has come up in our conversations quite a bit this morning, that curiosity, creativity, initiative are important, let's look at where we do have some control over that. And I'm going to use a Santa Rosa story for this purpose. Now, hang with me for a second. All right, hang with me for a second. I'm going to have you turn, because we're starting to look at different pieces of these units from different grade levels, different content areas. I would like you to turn in your white handouts to page 11. Keep that stimulating curiosity close by. On page 11, I want to explain to you a structure that has been developed for the collaborative curriculum design. So the collaborative curriculum design is a model of how we approach a multidisciplinary problem solution-based curriculum. So let me explain this a little bit, and then we're going to jump into looking at pieces. So we anchor on standards. In social studies, by the very nature of being social studies history teachers, you tend to be more humanities oriented anyway. You're going to bring in some of the science and the technology. You're going to be bringing in literacy. Those are 20 more standards or so that you have inherited. Not that you don't always work in the world of words, reading and writing. So you're multidisciplinary almost by the very nature of the content that you teach. We're going to anchor on standards. As I mentioned earlier, the social studies standards in California and in most states are not written at the highest level. We can take them there. So when you say student will study or will understand, which are two of the verbs that you use a lot, we can define that. We can bring it up a notch. So we're going to look at your standards, and we're going to think deeply about those standards. We're going to look at whatever reading, writing you're bringing in to enhance the standards. Not that you're English teachers, nobody's saying that. It's just literacy is a way to understand history and to record history. We start out with invitation to engage questions. So what are those big global questions to stimulate students' curiosity? It's our kickoff to the unit. And then we build segments or sequences. These sequences are not necessarily equal length. You might have one sequence that lasts 3 weeks. Another sequence might be a week. Generally, people are creating 6 units in a year, but there's nothing sacred about that. It might be 5 units in a year. You probably aren't going to go over 6. There's too much to do here. You go too deeply. Maybe it's 5 units in a year. We decide what that looks like. So your first sequence, 2 weeks, 1 week, 3 weeks, is literally doing that literature review, that anchoring. It might be with an anchor text that you use. You want to teach about the civil rights movement, you might start out looking at a letter from a Birmingham jail. You might start out reading some news articles about that period of civil rights in the 1960s. You might go back further, but you anchor students. This is an academic structure, by the way. The first thing that you do when you start writing a dissertation or any scholarly journal is you ask a question. So the first thing your committee will say, if you have your doctorate, you know what I'm talking about, they'll ask you, well, what's your question? What do you want to know about? And then you review the literature. So you anchor your learning. The next thing you do is you really take that literature and you design your study. You go beyond it. So your study is taking it that next level. In terms of our units, anchor what kids need to know and be able to do, and then give them that opportunity to act on it. They take it deeper. It often involves parallel thinking. It might involve looking at the American Revolution and then juxtaposing another revolution. It might look like doing more research where there are multiple revolutions that different groups in your classroom are studying, and the query is, what are common causes of revolution across time, across cultures? Can we tease that out? What are those common causes? And then you get to the final sequence, which is the problem solution. Are there other types of revolutions that are occurring right now or that are percolating to occur? And what might be some solutions to bring to that need to be considered? Are they small revolutions that are happening right here in our school? Are they revolutions that are happening in other parts of the world? You get to define that, but the kids have to act on that and carry it forward and present a solution. What's the problem? What's the solution? Is there a solution? What do revolutions of the future look like? Will there be any? All right, so this is the sequence. It starts out with laying the foundation, releasing independence, and ultimately bringing kids to extended thinking and creativity. Now, within each sequence, you have pieces that are very interactive, that are very creative. You're not doing, this is the era of get out your notebook, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know. I had a great unit that was created in the LA area by a group of social studies teachers, and it was on the American Revolution. And they didn't say to the kids, get out your notes, I'm going to tell you what the causes of the American Revolution. They asked a question, kids walked in the room. The teacher said, how did a group of colonies, who weren't even a nation yet, take on the most powerful nation in the Western world successfully in revolution before modern communication? How did they do it? Form your research groups. Here are the resources. Here are some URLs you can check out on the 4 computers we have in the classroom. Here are some other articles. Form your research group. We're going to start reporting mid-period tomorrow. How did they do it? Now, isn't that more interactive than you just saying, get out your notes, I'll tell you how they did it? At some point, you have to push in, and that might be as the teams are working, yeah, but have you considered, did you look at this piece? Hey, turn to page 15, look what they said right there. And then you're coming over here, what questions do you have? Do you have a hypothesis, a statement yet? How do you think they did it? And then afterwards, when the kids each in their research teams present how they think this was done, or the questions that they have, then that allows you to clear up some misconceptions, to ask maybe some additional questions, to give some information, to bring kids together and say, we're all going to read this. Now, go back to your research teams. How did your ideas mesh with what you see this person saying in this article about how they did it? So much more interactive. Now, that's just sequence 1. So you're not just going to stimulate curiosity at the end, it's throughout. You're not just going to turn it over to the kids at the end, it's throughout. But your purpose in sequence 1 is lay your foundation that will take them then to that next step of independence. Now, with each one of these, We build some amazing, let me bring it all up. We build some amazing learning experiences for kids. We have rich learning opportunities. We're very clear. Part of writing your units, you will see a very clear teaching and learning progression. I'm going to show you one of those. It happens to be about Letter from a Birmingham Jail. So we have very clear teaching and learning progressions within each sequence that are possible. They're not everybody lockstep together. It's just, here's what we're thinking here. And you're a fairly small group. This isn't a district of 180,000 students. Thankfully, I'm sure, Diane. So you're a fairly small group, but we want everybody's input. Not everybody will want to write curriculum. I love it. I have loved it since I started. I was on the curriculum team when I walked into my first 8th grade classroom. I don't know why they included me. I didn't know enough yet, but I was on the curriculum team, and I loved it. Not everybody loves it, but we all have to have a rich curriculum. That's where kids learn. That's where teachers and kids come together. We want to bring everybody in for the feedback to this teaching and learning progression. We want some great resources, and together we're going to have better resources than we do separately. I'll talk later about the personalized instructional practices. We also do lots of evidence. We collect lots of evidence of student learning. Whether it's a little quiz, we still give quizzes once in a while. Whether it is a panel presentation, whether it's a graphic organizer, a paper kids have written, we collect multiple aligned with the standards we've identified for the sequence. So you'll have standards for the whole unit, and then each sequence has its assignment of standards. It might not be the whole unit standard. It might just be the standard you're addressing for that particular sequence. And we want to make sure that kids have absorbed what we wanted them to know and be able to do in that sequence. So there's some kind of an accountability measure. We will really make certain that we're aligning it with the learning that we were looking for. Because it's terrible to collect evidence of student learning when it's the wrong evidence. It's not what you really wanted to teach the kids. So we have to be clear. But it's a variety of different ways kids publish their knowledge. Then it's followed by a showcase where kids showcase the problem solution, their learning. And I will talk to you a lot about different digital tools that can be used. If you don't have digital tools, different ways that kids can showcase. What we've found for brain and memory research is that when kids have an audience, when people have an audience, they learn so much better. Look how much more you know about what you're teaching because you're presenting it to an audience. Look how much more you know about anything you've taught to somebody else. So we want kids to be in the role, and that makes it memorable. How many of you played sports? I was a softball coach, and I played softball, and I ran track. And I'll tell you what, I don't remember the hours of practice, but I even remember to detail games. That's our lunch is coming in, don't be distracted. I just wanted to acknowledge it. We're going to finish this, and then we'll eat lunch. All right, so I can remember details about games. My husband was a collegiate basketball coach. He remembers unbelievably every play in every game. It's where he put his brain. He can still tell you many years after he's been retired exactly what people, at which one of his players, at what level in their education. Oh, he was a sophomore, it was a game we played against Washington, and blah, 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 and this is what he did. He still remembers all of it. He's writing up his memoirs, and I'm reading these memoirs, and it's all about basketball plays. I said, honey, you might want to tell a little bit of the human story here too. Whatever, it's your memoir. How many of you were in performing groups, musical groups, drama groups? Yeah. You don't remember the daily hours of practice as clearly as you remember the performances. I remember my recitals. So think about this. The showcase is when the curtain opens. The showcase is what kids remember about the learning. That's when they solidify their learning. So we build a showcase in because it's good for memory. Those don't have to be extraordinary. Some of them will be. They might be small showcases, but you want to take it outside of the classroom, not just presenting to your colleagues or your peers, but presenting to a wider audience. That can be done on a Weebly. That can be done on some kind of display that you put in the library. All right, that's the outline. Now I'm going to show you a piece of it. You know what? If I show you a piece of this now, I'm going to ruin the flow. We're going to break for lunch now. All right, so we're going to come back to these samples of what's in these units from colleagues in the elementary and then from people who aren't in this district.